Are we able to see the attendees on the screen?
See a few joining now. Good evening, everyone. Hi, it's not even 6 p.m. technically yet, but here you are joining us tonight. We're going to wait just a minute or two, but I see our attendee list filling up already, so that's exciting. We've got a great artist talk here for you tonight, and we're so glad that you all are joining here with us. Thank you for spending a little time with us this evening. So as our attendees are coming in, I just want to start off with a few notes about the functionality of tonight. We have here with us Chintia Kirana, exhibiting artist at the Wiregrass Museum of Art. She's giving us a good bit of her time. And I did want to make a note that on Zoom for this webinar, you have the ability to ask questions. If you haven't done a webinar or it's been a while, you'll see as you put your cursor over the bottom of the black screen, it allows you to ask a question as the Q&A. There's also a chat box down there, or you can raise your hand. And so Chintia has so graciously encouraged our attendees this evening to ask questions. And we're hoping that it'll be an interactive session toward the end of the talk later on tonight. It's officially 6:01, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce the evening for us. That way we can get to the good stuff with Chintia. My name is Melissa Ray. I am a part of the team at the Wiregrass Museum of Art. Currently, Chintia is exhibiting her solo exhibition titled Between Heaven and Earth in our Bloomberg Gallery. And she was also the guest curator for a group show of international artists titled Path of Entry. We are so glad to welcome her here tonight. I also wanted to say thank you to all of our attendees who have joined us. Thank you for supporting the arts here in the Wiregrass region and throughout Alabama. We hope that you will share about the artist talk that you're in tonight with your friends and your family, that you'll visit the Wiregrass Museum of Art, and that you will continue to be advocates for the visual arts in Alabama. We also wanted to give a note of thanks to the Alabama State Council on the Arts for providing their support for tonight's programming. We have talked briefly before about our features in Zoom, but we've had quite a few more attendees come tonight. So wanted to let you know that during this talk, you can use the chat box as a function for letting us know where you're coming in from, for saying hello to Chintia. And then at the end of the artist talk, Chintia is encouraging our attendees to ask questions. You can ask questions about her process, her work, her background. So she has agreed to take a few minutes during the end of tonight to do that. You can also raise your hand toward the end, and if time allows, then we'll allow attendees to be able to turn on their video and to say hello directly to Chintia. I also want to note that this webinar is being recorded, so we will be able to publish it through the Wiregrass Museum of Art's channel. So if you have a friend who really wanted to attend but wasn't able to make it, then we will be able to send that out via our social media channels and our YouTube channel for Wiregrass Museum of Art. So now that I have said all that, I wanted to just share a little information about the artist that is sharing with us this evening. Chintia Kirana is a multidisciplinary artist, educator, and art activist. Her works have been featured in solo and group exhibitions nationally and internationally in Dubai, Malaysia, South Korea, Bangladesh, Italy, Sweden, Finland, and Croatia. Her work has been featured in venues like the ISE Cultural Foundation in New York, the Juby Art Center in Chicago, Siena Art Institute in Italy, the Whitney Museum of American Art, Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts, and then here at the Wiregrass Museum of Art in Dothan, Alabama as well. Cynthia is currently serving on the board of the Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts and teaching at a visual and performing arts school in Montgomery, Alabama. To finish up our introduction, I encourage you all to visit her exhibition, Between Heaven and Earth, and her guest curated exhibition, Path of Entry, at Wiregrass Museum of Art. They are on display now through June 26th, so you have a few weeks left to come and view these in person. I'm going to hand it over to Cynthia. I'll excuse myself out, and then we'll see you all at the end of the talk. Enjoy.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Although I cannot see your faces, I hope that we get a chance to chat towards the end. Let me get my PowerPoint slide ready here. Just a second. Sharing screen. Okay. I started this body of work presented at the Wiregrass Museum about 2 years ago during my residency at the Vermont Studio Center. It was sort of a time of transition for me. I no longer teach in academia, so I was trying to find my way. And but it seems like every year it's a moment of transition. So this is just another transition amongst many other ones, right? But prior to the residency, I worked on a couple of series of work about memory, identity, and the passage of time, this is the theme that I'm still continuing to explore. As a Chinese descent, rituals and tradition are a big part of my upbringing. My family and I continue to celebrate the burning of joss paper to honor and send offerings to the spirit world or the ancestral world. And these joss paper range from, fake money to really elaborate paper mache objects. If you Google joss paper, you'll find really amazing paper mache luxury items, which is really interesting. But I use those offerings and the ashes from the offerings and collect them to create paintings and drawings. So here what we have is actually a collection of incense ashes and collection of ashes from the burning of the joss paper, collection of carbon buildup I've been collecting since 2014. Like I mentioned earlier, I would then reconstruct these materials into ink or create pressed charcoal to create my drawings and painting. After the passing of my grandparents, a new body of work emerged. This is called Letter to Loved Ones. And actually, this work was shown in Uncommon Territory exhibition at Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts a few years ago. So this series is about language and communication as they relate to memory. I wasn't able to see my grandparents much while they were still alive. So there are many, many things left unsaid, And in this case, the use of joss paper become a tool for me to communicate to the spirit world. It becomes a link to my tradition and my culture. The work also then become palimpsest. I think we could all relate to having selective memories. We would remember, things that we hold close and dear and disregard others. And with each memories, the previous become layered and sometimes forgotten. This particular piece on the left It's actually shown at the Wiregrass Museum for the first time during their biennial exhibition. And that's how I learned about the amazing museum that is Wiregrass. Lucky me. So I've always been interested in, I'm gonna go back here, sorry. I've always been interested in spiritual tendencies within modern and contemporary art. What is it about an art piece that connects us with each other, with our humanity? And my continual research is on this matter, whether it be aesthetically or content-wise in terms of writing. How can one present the sublime? How does the numinous beyond 18th century romantic landscape is portrayed now in contemporary art, right? So but with all of those romantic ideas and ideas about numinous, the sublime, I tend to gravitate towards more of a post-minimalist tendency, more on conceptual art, and the ideals of arte povera, the Italian art movement, which literally means poor art. So I'm interested in this idea of life and art as one entity and exploring art making, and not just the making of it, but also how does the practice expand beyond ourselves, which I will briefly share towards the end of my presentation. So as mentioned earlier, the initial investigation for the new body of work started about 2 years ago at Vermont Studio Center. Just want to share with you all the beautiful Vermont and beautiful studios there. If you're an artist and you have not been, I would highly recommend you to apply. It's amazing, such a beautiful place and fantastic residency and staff. So here's a bit of behind the scene of my studio there. There, I was really interested in subtle nuances of change in lights. So for example, matte versus gloss, reflection, absorption, and contrasting textures in emboss versus deboss. And actually, this interest and exploration continue to progress in the selected works currently shown at the Wiregrass Museum, such as this one titled In Flight. For the exhibition, I've selected 6 serial works spanning from 2019 to the present: Fire, Char, Rising Sun, Silver Lining, Redlining, which is previously called Transient, and Forest of Unspoken Words. The works examine longing and belonging, while also depicting permanency and impermanency in relation to the passage of time. There's also a haiku. I typically create haikus for my show or for a new body of work that I created. And for this one particularly is this haiku: neither here nor there, distance and isolation between heaven and earth. So the journey of this exhibition starts with a time-based work called Fire. It is a video work of the burning of those joss paper that we saw earlier today. And it's actually manipulated into 3 different speeds. Fire in this case is a connector between heaven and earth for me. One of the video is in real time. The other one, the speed is a little bit slower, and the middle one here is actually the slowest. I'm gonna pause here so we can take a look at it just a few minutes longer. This is another piece that's included in the show. This piece was made with heat drawing and acrylic. So again, like I've, I'm always interested in showing time, you know, how can it be portrayed in material way and also conceptually. And in this case, time was materialized in three ways. One is the actual piece itself, you know, the marks that are being left. Two is the use of tool. The longer I put the tool, the longer I use the tool and put it on the canvas, the darker the marks become. So again, I could kind of like alter the intensity of these gradient by lifting it off sooner or letting it stay longer. And the third is actually it, the time for the viewers to see the glowing red here on top of the piece. I'm really interested in those little nuances and the little trick of the eyes, you know, all those little surprises. And sometimes the viewers are able to get it right away, but other times, you know, we are so used to moving so fast. So so oftentimes it doesn't get seen. But then again, if you're able to visit the show in person, I do hope that you take the time to see the little red glow. In terms of process, traveling is a big part of my process. I think that's when I reset, you know, before going back to the studio and being a hermit. And whenever I travel, I always gravitated towards visiting places of worship, churches, basilicas, temples, or mosque. You know, I'm not really religious, but growing up, duality has always been a part of my upbringing. My half of my family is Christian, and the other half is Buddhist. So we have really interesting um, dialogues and and relationship. I'm always so intrigued, though, you know, by all the rituals that all these different religion of the world, um, and also the rituals that the worshiper follow. You know, this is series of my silver linings work. It's a bit of a departure from, you know, my earliest work. I don't know if you ever seen my In Time series. They're more circular, and this time I was really interested in arches. Um, I think those windows and those doors from basilicas and churches and temples kind of making their way visually into the work. And here the arches are filled with lines to represent, you know, a poetic metaphor for borders and divisions that make up our world, whether it is physical or psychological or philosophical. Um, a lot of the times my work is created due to difficult moments, and I think that's the way for me to process. Some of those are actually biographical, and others typically is a response to what's happening in the world. So here's a reflection of those. Um, And here's the detail of the installation that is included in the middle of the exhibition. There are actually burn marks on the scroll, hung like a banner. This piece is about writings that we cannot decipher. This piece is about those memories that we would like to share, or communication that we would like to share, but we never get a chance to share. It is inspired by the earlier work, expanded here in a way. And I call this Forest of Unspoken Words. Here's the detail of the work. The mark that is being presented here is actually made from burning the paper. There's a lot of burning and a lot of fire in my work. Here's another view from previous installation at Southeastern Museum a few years ago. Behind the piece, there is a series called Redlining, which depicts barriers and void. So here's one of my sculptural pieces. I work predominantly two-dimensional, although sometimes I veer away and explore three-dimensional medium. And this is one of the series that, one of the newer series that I've been working on, which is called Char. And actually, this is the only one presented at the museum currently. So this particular piece is burned and gilded shovel. In a way, it's memento mori, right? I'm always interested in objects and how objects could hold content. And the Burn Away article previously mentioned the relationship with this piece to Marcel Duchamp piece. And the thing about that is I feel like most conceptually driven artists would cross paths with Duchamp at some point, in their work. So it was kind of nice to have that relationship mentioned there. I've always had a bit of a dark humor, and my family can attest to this. I'm a bit sarcastic in a way, and I thought when making this piece, it's really sarcastic, really, to be buried with golden shovel, right? But this is particularly about many conversation I have with my friends, and it's the conversation about the pursuit of happiness, the idea of to have and to live, right? Because oftentimes our busy life doesn't really provide time to contemplate, just time to enjoy. And before you know it, you'll be buried with the golden shovel. um, but yeah, but seriously, I do hope that when the viewers, view my work, they would find a bit of moment of contemplation, a bit of slowness, because they do. It does take time. It's not really in your face, and oftentimes it's really hard to see, especially those silver lining series. Because once you walk around and you move from side to side, depending on where the light hits, you see much more better. And when you move, then those lines will disappear because there's not enough light hitting it. So it does take time. And like Melissa mentioned earlier, the show is up until the 26th of June. So I want to share with you also the other side of my practice. I come from a practice that is equally solitary and also social, being in the studio, doing research, making art, and then usually traveling to learn and gain new inspiration. Um, my studio work is unintensely political, but I do know that art can change the world. Maybe perhaps just, looking at it and taking the time to slow down, meditate, or doing, or by, participating or being in public arts, um, and doing more socially engaged projects. So since being back in Montgomery and setting studio in Montgomery, home studio, really, uh, it's not a proper studio, it's a home studio. My practice expanded to include more participatory and community inclusive project. So the buzzword here is placemaking, right? Everybody's using it, but I would argue that the word for me would be homemaking, since place and home provide two separate sentiments. So there, I here, there, I'm here in Montgomery. Here, I founded Expose Art, an alternative art space and artist residency. It sounds fancy, but it's basically my properties turned into spaces for creation, workshops, discussions. I've created small happenings, small gatherings, such as New Montgomery cocktails. It's essentially a challenge where each visitor or a guest they're invited have to provide a cocktail recipe and have to make it. And it's a challenge because there will be jurors. It's basically us. I figured it was a great way to get people together. And to be honest, actually, the cocktail challenge was developed out of frustration after a drink menu called Old Montgomery. And we all vented over the world Old Montgomery, right? And also its implications. So um, the idea was to represent an accurate depiction of current Montgomery from the locals' perspective, but also expats. So each guest is invited to create their signature cocktail with a backstory to represent New Montgomery. So that's always fun, and it's always a nice way to get people together. I'm collecting these recipes, and I hope eventually, over time, I could create a book out of it. Um, a friend asked me like, why are you still in Montgomery, right? That's It's a challenging question, and still I'm still figuring it out. But I know that I always want to put Montgomery on the map, and with the help of few kindred spirits, Montgomery Arts Project was born. Play the video while I talk. Well, maybe I'll play the video in just a little bit here. So Montgomery Arts Project, or MAP, and Expose Art works in collaboration with other art entities to re-envision the community and to provide, a platform where artists or makers or patrons can kind of get together and collaborate, and change the city, right? That's the hope. So what we did for our inaugural project, it was really very much centered around reintroducing the community. So we work in collaboration with JR, the French photographer JR, to bring the Inside Out project. And this project is not new because other cities and states also did it before. But it is new for us. So over the course of 2 weeks, we hosted multiple events all around the city to take photos of the people of Montgomery. And here is the video. We even make a really cool promo to get people together and participate. My friend Josh is a very good video editor. Here's the final product. So there's, all these planned for another project, but last year due to COVID, the project that's supposed to happen last year is canceled. But we hope to bring it back this year. And I guess I will close the presentation with this final image and open the floor for questions about my practice. If you are wondering about when the next New Montgomery Cocktail Challenge date is, I do not have that just yet, but you could follow me on Instagram for updates though. Does anybody have a question? Oh, I'm reading chat right now. Hi, Najar. Thanks for being here. Hello, Angie. Penny. Meg. Okay. Oh, there is also somebody's hands up. Oh, hello, Diane. Hi, Ellen. Okay, I do have a question here, Q&A. Can you tell us more about using ashes? Yes, in terms of the process of using ashes, or in terms of getting the ashes. Using the ashes. Oh, yes, sure. So with the ashes, as mentioned earlier, I collected those using, let me go back to my slides here. Just, so we can take a look at visually. Oh, okay. So all those years during the ceremonial rituals, the burning of the joss paper, I would collect the ashes here. But sometimes the burning is not really clean ash, so I have to really clean the ashes to make sure that there's no large debris. After I collected those, I mixed them with gum arabic. Sorry, excuse me. Ooh. I mix it with the gum arabic and water. And when you mix those medium together, it has a little bit of binding agent, and I'm able to use it as ink to paint. It was really surprising because I didn't think I was going to be able to get a range of tones and value, but it gets pretty dark. As you can see here, here, there. I hope that answered your question, Meg. Let's see. Just switch back and forth here. Suzanne Bravo. Hi, Suzanne. Thanks for being here. Can you tell more about the process you use to make the burn marks? Sure, yeah. So I use the wood burning tool. So for this, it's just a wood burning tool. You know, they have different tips for the wood burning tool. And often I change those tips just to kind of see which marks work better, and also to make it less uniform, you know. And then the longer I let it stay there, um, the darker the marks, and also, you know, the bigger the holes will be. And in relation to that, well, in contrast to the scroll with this particular piece, which I use the same tool, the wood burning tool, but here I was able to let it stay a little longer because it's on canvas. So I was able to change the gradient and the intensity of the heat to create this mark. Um, Amanda, hi Amanda. What inspires you these days? Have you seen a big jump in creation, or was it more difficult for you over the past year and a half? Um, I think I got a bit of a collective depression, you know, I mean, the state of the world, and there's just a lot of deaths around us, whether it be police brutality or COVID, you know, or Asian crimes, Asian hate crimes. It's just crazy world right now. But in terms of difficulty in creating, mm, not not quiet. It does take me a little longer to process things, and usually, you know, I go with okay, events happening, and then trying to make sense out of it, and then do a lot of writings, and then do a lot of readings and research to see what's been done before, right? Because I mean, I need to make sure that I stay relevant. um, so, so in that sense, the process of making, even during the pandemic, hasn't really halted too much. Um, it's really nice to have the time to stay home, and actually, last year was the first year that I'm in Montgomery, the full year, the full months of the year. Usually I'm away, so it was really nice to be home. It was kind of nice to be able to clean the studio and do a little bit of work around the house, and you know, prepare the studio for the next body of work. What inspires me? My garden is really inspiring, but you know, a lot of people start to pick up gardening during the pandemic, but actually I've started gardening since I moved to Montgomery, because I have moved back to Montgomery because of the space, because of the land. So that's always inspiring. It gives me lesson of patience, um, because you know, when you grow something from seed, it'll take time. You have to take care of it, and it's a nice reflection on life itself, and it's a nice way to tell myself, you know, to be patient, and to take time, and to feed myself, right, intellectually or creatively, or just, I don't know, be surrounded with things that are inspiring. I'm trying to read all of the questions. Sorry. Joyce. Oh, hi, Joyce. On the gold piece, on the implied, this gold piece, this is actually gold leaves. So the process of making is like this. It's printmaking and drawing. Um, so I would carve the linoleum block to create these characters. Um, and then run it through the press, and it creates, these um, deboss and emboss pieces. Sue, tell us about burning the marks into your scroll. Do you start with an idea or a plan? Um, yeah. Well, usually when I'm in the studio, I start with somewhat an idea, right? And those ideas would oftentimes transform into something more magical than I first thought it. So, this is kind of like the case with that scroll piece. In the beginning, I was just intending to do one scroll, which I was going to lay it this way, like a wave. Um, but then, I have this idea. I don't know about the the interest in filling up a room with things. Maybe I'm secretly a hoarder. So the idea was to create a bunch of these scrolls and make it look like you're in a forest. Um, Forests, trees, and paper. So again, that kind of duality. Uh, but I didn't really get a chance to fill up the whole room, because if I do that, then you really cannot walk in the gallery. So that's why it's concentrated in the middle area in that sense. But it was really nice too, because then the interaction between the scroll itself and then the pieces that are behind it, because of those little holes, and then from far away you can kind of see the red kind of showing through, and then you can see like darker shadows kind of like layering those pieces together. So it sometimes, when you make the work, you present it somewhere else, it breathes new life, and then the visitor will come in and commented on it, and it breathes another life. So it continually live in a way, which is which is really interesting. um, I never really think about that before when I was a student, trying to mimic, realism or create something that is highly technical, which I was trained to do, and which I still have and love and appreciate. Um, but I think, you know, at the moment now, I'm very much interested in, like, how can I show these same awe, the same interest, the same curiosity with something that is minimal. Um, it's challenging because oftentimes people don't quite get it, which is normal. But it's kind of like a balance, like how do you make it conceptual enough where it's easy to read, but at the same time still hold a little bit of weight in terms of content. And that's my personal interest whenever I'm in the studio. Hi, Shuhong. Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for coming. Sarah, do you see any Indonesian influences in your work? That is a challenging question. And that is actually what I've been thinking about these past few weeks. Um, so, you know, a lot of the pieces that I make always talks about the past, the passing of time, or relates to, my family, grandparents, because I feel like that's a link for me, a link of my identity, a link of my culture. And now that they passed away, I feel like I'm disconnected, right? Um, and then even though that, I'm thinking about those things, my family isn't truly Indonesian. Um, so it's a little challenging because I don't really, whenever I'm in Indonesia, or I was born in Indonesia, but I'm not really considered like Indonesian because we're Chinese descent. And recently, even when helping my parents with their passport renewal, I got in um, I got access to their parents and their grandparents' documents, which they have to change their name. They have to change their Chinese name to an Indonesian name to become an Indonesian citizen. So, from the beginning of my history and identity, I was never Indonesian, which is weird. Ah, so that's where I am. It's like still in search of identity. Um, I know somewhere along the line that a family member married to an Indonesian, but growing up, I always feel like the other, and then moving to the US, still the other. So it's never ending otherness. um, but I did, Sarah and Cliff, I did visit LA just a few days ago, and I was able to get in touch with the consulate there. Um, so I'm gonna get in touch with the Indonesian embassy and the Department of Culture to do a little bit of project here, because I know I'm not the only Indonesian American artists that feel the same. So that would bring a really interesting dialogue, like what happened to identity when you're in between. Um, what does that look like? So that's something that I'm really interested in exploring. Najar, you seem to enjoy, hi Najar, enjoy the process of art making. Therefore, have you allowed yourself to present the process as a performance piece? You know, I do that in secret, Najar. In my studio, I do that in secret. Um, but maybe one of these days I'll present those videos also. I'm always so shy about videos, and just like this recording, this feels a little unnatural for me because I can't see your faces. It's Yeah, it's like me talking to myself. Hi, Wendy. Thank you. Sarah, do you think the title helps communicate the concept? I hope so. I hope so. But I'm also interested in language and words because, like as a um, non-native English speaker, translation always get lost. But it's also interesting to play around with words because then you can be kind of um, secretive about it. So I do try to kind of play around with words, with the title, or or the show title, or the pieces, the title of the pieces a little bit. And sometimes word has double meaning, because again, translation. Okay, this is all in chat, so let me go to Q&A. So let me go back here. Ooh, doesn't want to come out. Amy Burr. Hi, Amy. What kind of book are you thinking for the cocktail recipe? A publishable bound book or an artist book? Hmm. Good question. I have not thought about it yet. Um, Although, I think a publishable bound book is nice to share because then it's not just the story of the cocktail, right? It's a story of Montgomery and the people. So it's essentially the story of the people, and I would like to be able to share that um, to a broader audience. Meg, how do you deal with trying to sell your art while being true to yourself? That's a good question. I mean, and maybe that's the one reason where I don't really approach commercial galleries just yet. Um, I'm always scared of like being told what to make, right? I mean, that's the freedom that artists have is make whatever you want to make and hopefully it touch somebody. Um, so yeah, but I also think that there are galleries out there and dealers out there that really believe in your work and truly see your vision. So the challenge is finding them. I think that's all the questions I have.
Hey, Cynthia, I'm joining you again.
Oh, hi, Melissa.
I wanted to jump on and give any of our attendees another round. If we have any outstanding questions, anyone been dying to know something this time, we'll give a few more minutes for that. While we're waiting for any last questions to come through, wanted to thank Cynthia for her time with us, for bringing this exhibition to the Wiregrass Museum of Art, reminding everyone that the exhibitions are open through June 26th. You can find the museum's hours and contact information at wiregrassmuseum.org. And we will be downloading this recording tonight and getting it up on our YouTube channel as soon as possible. So you can expect that within the next 1 to 2 days. If you haven't signed up for our email newsletter, please do so. It's on the homepage of our website. We have many more artist talks like this planned throughout the end of the year, and we'll be focusing on more Alabama artists and shining a light on our permanent collection. So we'd love to have anyone who joined us tonight but is not that familiar with our work to become more involved at the museum and to join us for other artist talks. Cynthia, I see, oh, the last question is how much longer will the exhibit be up? And it is on display through June 26th. That is both Between Heaven and Earth, Cynthia's solo exhibition, and then the group show that she guest curated, Path of Entry. You can find information about that at wiregrassmuseum.org. Cynthia, one last question, and I think I saw it in the chat a while back, is how can our attendees stay in touch with you? How can they reach out, or where can we find you on the web?
Oh, yeah. That's a great question. Thanks for asking. Well, my website is, I'm going to type it in chat here. It's basically my first name, last name.com. I do not have a subscription form uploaded just yet, but I will do that because it seems like that's a good idea to do. So please do email me, and also I'm on Instagram at see.in.tia. There's a couple of articles out. One of them is from Burnaway. If you go to Burnaway and just type in my name, you should be able to see the review of this show there. And yeah, that's basically it. My website, my Instagram, and if Anybody would like to visit my studios, you are welcome. Send me a note and I'll be happy to host you in my studio and see my creative mess and selective hoarding.
We've had more than 30 attendees here tonight, so that's a dangerous invitation to.
Oh, it's, I'm used to it. Before, when we first started the art house event, we had like 20 people, and then eventually we have like 200. I think at one point we got to 200. It was amazing. My neighbors might not think so, but I think so. Well, everybody, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, Wiregrass Museum, for providing the talk and taking the time to do the show. I know this was supposed to schedule last year, and I'm really thankful for you guys for postponing it and not scrapping it all together. Thank you, Dana. I know you're there in the audience, so thank you for everything. You've been so helpful, and all the staff too. Oh, hi, Deb. Hi, Michael. Thank you again, everybody. And I do hope to see you in the near future. Until we meet again next time, I suppose.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. Thank you to our attendees tonight. Find more information at wiregrassmuseum.org and cynthiakirana.com. And we are going to sign off for the evening. Thanks, everyone.